How are we all? Okay. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into doing this video, but I thought it had been a while, and I was in the process of deciding on what pins I was going to use for this little pocket cleaver. Pin selection is something that I don't think I've heard a whole lot of makers talk about, so I thought, well, maybe this will get a discussion going and maybe we can all learn something in this area. I generally take a bit of time and try and decide what pins are going to go with what knife, and especially when it comes to picking, a handle material is obviously the first thing that I usually try and get organised, and along with a profile, which I've already got a few here that I'll be showing you too, so we'll see how that goes. Now I'm using here some really cool looking hybrid scales. So they've got a resin and a stabilised, I'm going to guess a mallee burl. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it looks like. Now, being never used it, sort of makes the choice of what pins, because basically what I'm going to try and do is, as far as the line goes, I'm trying, I'm going to roughly try and centre it. So, my next decision is, I like to get my holes drilled before I start doing bevels, because the holes that I drill into the tang help me set it up in the fold jig, which I have one in there set up now. So yeah, deciding on what pins to use. I don't have a massive selection, so to speak, but I do have a half decent sort of selection. I don't know if I can, as you can see, I've got a few bits and pieces there. You saw all those. I'll set that back up the same. No, that's not quite the same, is it? There we go. See plenty of me. Ah dear. Alright. So I've actually sort of been sitting here for a little bit and thinking, I just don't know. I'm not, I'll look at pin selection. It's part of the look of the knife. Unless you're going to go for hidden pins, or you're doing something that's got no pins, well, it's not something you need to think about. So to start with, I try and make the decision of whether you want the pins to really stand out, or do you want them to sort of be quite hidden and not too easy to see. For example, this little pocket cleaver I'm doing, which has got I believe a spalted tamarind, and when it came to doing pins for this one, and I must admit, choosing what liner to put on, I suppose, is something else that was something I had to think about with this one. Being a lighter coloured wood with dark highlights, so to speak, which I'm really looking forward to getting this one finished and seeing how that turns out, because I think it's going to look fantastic. Now, my first decision was with the liners, and I decided that I'd go for a white liner, which is just a G10, 1.5mm, I think, or maybe 2mm, one of them, because I didn't want the liner to stand out too much. I wanted to sort of maybe just blend in with that lighter colour, and I'm hoping that once I'm done the spalting, I think you'd call it, in the wood, I think that's what is going to be the showstopper of this one. Pins. So I decided that pretty early on it was either going to be stainless or brass, and brass won out just because I sort of just wanted to do something a little different. I think I have done it once before, but I've gone with actually 3 different size pins, with the back pin being hollow, a tube for a lanyard if necessary. So they're some of my reasonings for what I chose on this one. I figured the brass won't stand out too much, but on closer inspection, I think it won't be too hard to notice that the pins are actually a different size, and I think it's going to look great. Okay, next one is this one. Once again, this is the multi-piece scales of, I believe there is actually, I think it's 0.5mm white liner with a toxic green and some green resin with micarta on either side. And for some reason, I'm really not quite sure, whenever I'm using sort of multi-piece scales like this, I actually like to always ensure, regardless of whether the segmented piece, whether it's part of the bolster, so to speak, or in the middle, or wherever it may be along the tang, I always like to at least have one pin through it. Just for a little bit of peace of mind, I suppose, that, you know, if I was to leave that pin out and only have the back ones, which would most likely be sufficient, but I just like to think that to ensure that these centre pieces, that's just something to help keep them in place. So that was sort of, and I like the look of the smaller, I think 1/8 pins, and sort of just adding a couple more to the norm. So I think then and aesthetically, I think that's the word, close enough. I think that's going to look cool too. And actually, this one's I've actually got a keeper for the pocket cleavers, which I was pretty happy about. I originally had no intentions of making one for myself, considering there's only 50 being made, but a fellow maker who I'm making one of these for decided that he was going to send me the steel to make them, and sent me a piece specifically to make myself one too, so I really couldn't say no to that. This one, yeah, I'm excited about this one too, because there's a bit of a first. I believe this was it's stabilised, and it's probably a bit hard to tell what wood this is because it's still at a pretty rough grit type finish, but it's a stabilised, and I'm guessing it could be she oak or one of those type of woods anyway. And I really wanted the wood to be a highlight on this one, and I decided to get just a brown canvas micarta rod and using that as pins. So I think they'll sort of really blend in nicely. But once again, on closer inspection, I'm sure you'll sort of be able to notice them. But what I'm undecided about with this one is it's probably hard to pick up on. Oops. But there's lines. Have sort of, you know, the pins sort of have a grain as far as the layers of canvas go. So I'm undecided whether or not to put them in so those lines go along with the grain of the wood, or actually turn them, you know, sort of that 90 degrees and have them going vertical. I'm not quite sure yet, but the one thing I do know is whichever way I decide, I will be taking very close notice of the rotation of each pin, and whichever way they are going to end up, they'll all be the same. So that's just something that I think, you know, I think if I was just to randomly epoxy them in and not worry about that rotation, I think once they're done and all cleaned up, I believe that they're going to be quite noticeable, and I don't think that'll just look great. Then I've got this one here. I haven't got the knife on this one because it's actually set up in my jig ready to get the bevels done. But this is just a G10 with a black and blue liners. All snaps together nice. The pins are just nice enough to be able to slide in and out. With this one, I sort of wanted the pins to be a feature of the knife. I think with the black G10, just having some sort of bold brass pins like this, they really makes them stand out against the black and just looks really cool. So I've gone nuts on that one. Not too nuts anyway, but I think they're 1/4 inch pins. I'll just pick up all the crap that I'm dropping in the meantime. So yeah, I don't know. So yeah, look, this was still my main reason for being here, is making the decision on what pins to use for this. So my what do I call it? My steps of reasoning would generally be, the first thing I'll think of is, do I want the pins to stand out or do I want them to blend in? So with this one, I've got the choice. If I want them to blend in, I'll probably almost go for maybe just a carbon fibre, because I've found that I could probably work it so the pins are possibly maybe up in the resin, and that could possibly work out real well to have them sort of just blend in that little bit, because I believe there's sort of a red-blue through this resin, so the black pins would possibly blend in rather nice. If I wanted it to stand out, I don't know, I've never used this before, but I've got myself some, this is 5/16 stainless. So I think, if I was to go something that big, I'd probably only do the 2 pins, not 3. But I do think that would stand out quite a bit. And I'm not actually quite sure on having such a big pin on a small knife. Like I don't think I've ever gone quite that far before, so I'm not quite sure how that would look. Maybe it's worth a go. I think the safe option, in a sense, which isn't necessarily a bad option, and it's probably one of the ones that's higher on my list, was to go with just a 532 brass rod and just do 3. So they'll stand out, they'll be brass and they'll be nice and shiny, and they'll probably stand out, but they won't be too big to take it away from how cool I'm expecting this to look. So they're just simple things that I always take into consideration. The other thing I've considered is, because I haven't used it for quite a while, I've actually got it's got a little Z on it, 5mm, and the reason for that is this is bronze, so I've just put the Z for bronze. So that's another option that I have, that maybe, just because, this one is going to be a bit different, that maybe a bit of bronze might look good. I could also use maybe the the canvas micarta might look good too, or do I go for maybe something smaller? I've got some little 1/8 stainless that possibly would work well. I don't know, I haven't decided yet, so maybe I'll be sharing this video, hopefully sort of maybe in a few Facebook groups and stuff too, so I might just hang out that little bit and see what responses I get. The other option, just so you all do have an option, is I've got some brass tube. This is 7mm, so it's not overly big, sort of compared to this is brass tube as well. So this is 5/16 on the outside. This is only 7mm, so it's really not much difference, I suppose. I think that relates to make them pretty close. I think the 5/16 is 8 point something mil, or close to 8mm. But this is the main difference between these, I suppose, not necessarily the size, but the 7mm one is quite a thin walled tube, whereas the 5/16 has quite a bit more thickness to it. So I'm not quite there. The camera's this side. There we go. So that's the difference with those. I haven't actually thought about using sort of maybe some quarter brass. So that's sort of already been ruled out as far as what choice I was leaning towards. So anyway, I'm not quite sure if there's much else, unless I want to talk about maybe some bigger knives. I suppose I haven't really mentioned it on here, but recently I was lucky enough to get a bit of an upgrade in the shop. And maybe if I was to just get that out of the way, you will be able to see that there. Yes, I do now have myself a grinder. So happy days for me. But as far as these little pocket cleavers go, I've only got 11 more to make, so I've decided that I'll finish them the way I've been doing them. So I'm still doing all those by hand, so the grinder's sort of not getting much action at the moment, but I have given it a whirl, hence where this blank come from. I've actually sort of modelled this off a famous, well, maybe not so famous, but a well-known knife, and I'm not quite sure how many of you guys out there will probably be able to pick what that is. I'm sure a few of you will probably pick it up straight away, but it's something that I'll be doing for myself. Just out of some 5mm SUP 9, I believe, so it's going to make a good decent bit of a chopper out of it. That's the plan anyway. We'll also see how that goes. But pins for something this large. Once again, it's sort of hard to say what sort of pins I'm going to use because I'm not exactly sure what handle material. Even though I'm really keen, should check these out. I've got myself some beautiful, what do we call them again? Hybrid scales. They've got a really purple resin mix going on through there, so they're taped up. I actually did take some tape off the other day because I was showing someone. There's probably a good look. They're from, oh gee, I've got to get it right, Mind Matter Create. Punch that in, you'll find him. He does some really cool stuff with resins and stabilised. Usually, I think he uses all Australian wood. So yeah, awesome stuff. Mind Matter Create. Check him out. So if I'm going to use something like that, there's a good chance just for something different, and considering it's something I haven't done, you know, for a nice big knife, good chance I'll probably go for some nice big pin material, and I might actually use this 5/16, I believe 5/16 stainless, and sort of do nice, you know, 3 nice big pins like that. So anyway, I'm not quite sure how much longer I should be dribbling on for, but I think that's just something that we can start a discussion with, I hope. Any questions, feel free to make a comment. Promise I'll get back to you at some stage without being too far away. Yeah. Alright guys, thanks for listening. Hope I've given you some food for thought. I don't think I was really intending on trying to teach anything, so to speak, but more to maybe open up a bit of a discussion. So yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. If you like it, give me page a follow and subscribe and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, talk to you again soon. I'm sort of hoping to be a little bit more active on here. Yeah, time will tell. Alright folks, be shifty and be safe. See you later.